A day after President Biden moved up the deadline for U.S. forces to leave Afghanistan, there's growing concern over the stability of the country. A Pentagon spokesperson said that there is a, quote, deteriorating security situation in Afghanistan. The Taliban continues to gain ground and push back Afghan troops. CBS News senior foreign correspondent Charlie D'Agata is in Kabul.
A surprise declaration from the Taliban today. The group has now taken control of 85% of Afghanistan. The Afghan government dismissed the claim, but no one disputes that the Taliban's rapid territorial gains are causing shockwaves in the capital and increasing concerns at the U.S. Embassy. It's only a few short miles from the U.S. Embassy to the airport, but long before the U.S. drawdown, American diplomats have been shuttling back and forth by helicopter. The roads are too risky. The situation has prompted comparisons with the rooftop rescue of Americans from Saigon in 1975.
There's going to be no circumstance where you see people being lifted off the roof of a embassy.
Yet the U.S. Embassy has been upping its security protocols. The top U.S. diplomat in Afghanistan is Ross Wilson.
We have added some additional quick reaction capabilities in the event that something happens.
I mean, worst case scenario, evacuation plans in place?
At this point, I don't think it's imminent. Planning for evacuations in any post like this is serious business.
Serious business that can't be ruled out. Now, the Taliban say the group have no intention of storming the U.S. Embassy, but any foreign forces that are left behind will be considered invaders and therefore legitimate targets. Lana?
Charlie, thank you. For more on all of this, I want to bring in Nancy Youssef. She is a national security correspondent for the Wall Street Journal. Nancy, thanks for being here. There's really a lot of confusion on getting Afghan interpreters and other people who helped U.S. forces in Afghanistan. Tell us what's at stake for them and their families if the Taliban continues to make gains in the country. And do we know how many Afghans we're talking about that need to be evacuated?
Sure. I'll start with your second question first. There's somewhere between 9,000 and 16,000 translators. The challenge is if you add their family members, the figures in terms of who needs to be evacuated rises to about 50,000. One of the reasons that people are concerned about their safety is on average, 2 translators a month are being killed in Afghanistan. And in the past, they have been targeted for working with coalition forces. Now, as the Taliban has moved through these districts and taken it over, there's no evidence that they've made a concerted effort to go after translators. They put out statements that essentially say if the translators surrender, there will be no harm done to them. But that's a big condition in terms of who decides what is an adequate surrender. And it's the uncertainty that has made evacuating them such a critical mission. The challenge is how to do it. President Biden yesterday announced that the U.S. would start doing so and complete its efforts by the U.S. withdrawal, which is scheduled to be completed at the end of August. He didn't say, though, where they would go as they awaited visa approval process. Among the territories that the United States is considering, according to defense officials I've spoken to, is Qatar, UAE, and Guam. And so it's the uncertainty about how the Taliban will treat them, coupled with the large-scale evacuation operation that needs to happen that has created such an urgency around this issue.
Mm-hmm. Nancy, many U.S. officials have expressed concerns about the security situation in Afghanistan. What are the broader implications if the Taliban continues capturing territory and perhaps even territory in Kabul?
So short term, I think what we'll see is more aggressive and contested fighting as they try to move into urban areas. Because in those urban areas, a lot of Afghans have grown up now for 20 years exposed to a life that they wouldn't have known had the Taliban remained in power. They've seen more of the West, they've seen more technology, and so they're more likely to be resistant to Taliban efforts to move into those cities. And so the expectation is that there'll be more fighting as they move into urban areas. Once that happens, though, however, the entire region essentially changes because it doesn't just affect Afghanistan. If we start to see a Taliban takeover, obviously we see the potential collapse of the Afghan government, the U.S.-backed Afghan government, the Afghan National Security Forces, and a fundamentally different Afghanistan. Moreover, I think you'll see that any success on that scale could potentially inspire and mobilize extremist groups around the region, particularly in Pakistan, and it would change how the region looks at extremist groups. And of course, most obviously, it would make Afghanistan a territory where the Taliban could potentially become a place where not only al-Qaeda, but other extremist groups could operate in the political and security instability that would potentially follow.
Yeah, Nancy, I want to follow up with you on this because obviously there is concern that as the U.S. forces exit, there's a vacuum, a power vacuum that's created. In addition to Afghan forces and the Taliban and other extremist groups sort of fighting that out, I'm wondering, are there other countries, because you mentioned the implications to Pakistan, but are there other countries, official governments really, that could try to get a foothold in Afghanistan once the U.S. withdrawal is complete? Can you tell us a little bit more about why some other countries might want to try to establish themselves in Afghanistan?
Sure, it's a great question and a timely one because I think the country that most people are looking at is China. And just this week, the Taliban moved into districts that along that 60-mile border between Afghanistan and China. The challenge is before the U.S. War in Afghanistan, the relationship between China and the Taliban was quite strained because the Taliban backed Uyghurs, the Muslim population in China. Since then, China's clout in the region has grown, particularly with the Taliban's main backer, Pakistan. China has also become increasingly influential in other Central Asian states that border Afghanistan. And there's been real economic investment that has happened by China in the region that could shape the relationship. And so the question becomes, will the Taliban continue to press China on its treatment of Uyghurs? Will it continue to support Uyghur extremists as it's done in the past? Or will it go the way of some of its other Central Asian neighbors, which have been reticent to criticize China on its treatment of Uyghurs and try to invest more and create an economic relationship? The other thing I would point out is that while China has the potential to have a stronger relationship with the Taliban, the security situation poses challenges as well. Just this week, China, through its state media, announced that it had evacuated its embassy in Kabul because of the security situation. So there are a lot of factors that will play for what I think appears to be a quite nuanced relationship.
All right. Nancy Youssef, thank you.
Thank you.